Some records in track and field feel like they belong to a different era of the sport altogether. Florence Griffith-Joyner's 21.34 seconds, set at the 1988 Seoul Olympics, is one of them. 38 years on, no woman has come within 0.2 of a second of it, and only a handful have ever broken 21.60. Flo-Jo's mark has outlasted entire generations of sprinters, survived the doping-fueled 1990s, and watched the event's depth rise around it without ever being seriously threatened. That may finally be changing. Heading into the back half of the 2026 season, 3 sprinters, St. Lucia's Julien Alfred, the United States' Gabby Thomas, and her compatriot Melissa Jefferson-Wooden, form the most credible trio the 200 meters has had in years. Between them they hold an Olympic gold back-to-back world titles, and now, as of this July, the 3rd fastest 200 meters ever run. None of them has touched 21.34. But for the first time in a long while, it doesn't feel like an abstraction either. This is the story of how each of them got here, and how close here actually is to history. Julien Alfred didn't arrive as a 200 meters specialist. The St. Lucian sprinter built her reputation over the shorter, more explosive 100 meters, where she became her country's first ever Olympic champion in Paris in 2024. The 200 meters was the event she was chasing, not leading. She took silver in Paris behind Gabby Thomas, a close but clear defeat. 2 years later, the hierarchy has flipped. Alfred opened her 2026 season in April with a startling 21.86 in Austin, a time so fast for that point in the calendar that it briefly stood as one of the quickest season openers in the event's history. She kept climbing from there. By July, she had reeled off 7 straight victories, and on the 10th of that month, at the Monaco Diamond League, she produced the run of her career. 21.51 seconds, a personal best by a wide margin, a St. Lucian national record, and the fastest time in the world for 2026. It also made her, at a stroke, the 3rd fastest woman in history over the distance, behind only Griffith-Joyner and Marion Jones on the all-time list. She backed it up 8 days later in London with a meet record 21.66, again beating Thomas into second. What stands out about Alfred's 2026 season isn't just the times, it's the consistency underneath them. A sprinter who spent years being defined by her 100 meters has quietly become the most dangerous 200 meters runner alive, and the closest anyone has been to 21.34 in decades. If Alfred is the new arrival, Gabby Thomas is the athlete everyone else has been measuring themselves against. Thomas has flirted with history longer than either of her rivals. Back in 2021, at the US Olympic trials, she ran 21.61, at the time the 2nd fastest 200 meters ever run, and 2 years later she lowered her own personal best to 21.60 at the US Championships in Eugene. That time remains the 4th fastest in history and her lifetime best to date. Paris 2024 was the validation those times had been building toward. Thomas won Olympic 200-meter gold, added relay golds in the 4x100-meter and 4x400-meter, and became the face of American sprinting heading into this cycle. Her 2026 season has been less about personal bests and more about proving she can still win against a deeper field than the one she once dominated. She's been runner-up to Alfred twice this season, 21.84 in Monaco, 21.81 in London, before taking a Continental Tour gold win in Budapest at 21.83. None of those times threaten her own best, let alone the world record. But Thomas remains the only member of this trio who has already run inside 21.65, and the questions about a genuine world record assault over the past 4 years have mostly been asked of her. Whether she still has one more step forward in her, at 29, with a title now to defend rather than chase, is the open question of her season. Of the 3, Melissa Jefferson-Wooden's path to 200 meters contention is the newest. She built her name in the 100 meters, Olympic bronze in Paris, a rivalry with training partner Sha'Carri Richardson, and eventually the world's top ranking in the event. The 200 meters was, by her own account, something she only started taking seriously in earnest fairly recently. The results suggest she made the right call. She won the 200 meters at the 2025 World Championships in Tokyo as part of a sprint double, and weeks later lowered her personal best to 21.68, a time that puts her fifth on the all-time list. In 2026, she's defended both that world title's momentum and her domestic crown, winning the USATF 200 meters again on July 26th with a season's best 21.69, just a hundredth outside her lifetime mark, while opting out of the 100 meters altogether to focus on the longer sprint. What makes Jefferson-Wooden's case interesting isn't raw speed compared to Alfred or Thomas's absolute bests, it's trajectory. She is the reigning world champion in both the 100 meters and 200 meters, still finding time off her best with every serious attempt, and has stated plainly that she believes new personal records are within reach this season. She heads toward the autumn's biggest test, the inaugural World Athletics Ultimate Championships in Budapest, doubling in both events once again. Put side by side, the gaps to Griffith-Joyner's record look like this. Alfred is closest on paper, and she is also the one currently in the best form of the three, winner of both of this year's head-to-head meetings with Thomas, and the only one of the group to have run under 21.60 this season. Thomas has the higher lifetime ceiling, but hasn't approached it in 2026. Jefferson-Wooden is the furthest from the record numerically, but arguably the most improved athlete in the field, having barely begun to specialize in the event. What's notable is how differently each of them is built as a threat to the record. Alfred's speed is generational but relatively fresh to this distance. Thomas has the proven ceiling but an uncertain trajectory. Jefferson-Wooden has the momentum of a sprinter still finding her limits. History suggests that world records are rarely broken by the fastest name on paper alone. They tend to fall when the right athlete meets the right race on the right day, against exactly this kind of pressure from all sides. 21.34 has resisted faster shoes, deeper fields, and better science for nearly 4 decades. It will likely take more than one great race to finally fall, probably a rivalry sustained over a season or two, where each athlete drags the others closer to the line simply by showing up. That is roughly what 2026 has produced. 3 women, each with a legitimate claim to being the best 200 meters runner alive at some point in the last 5 years, are now racing each other with more regularity than the event has seen in a generation. Alfred has the form and the closest time. Thomas has the ceiling and the experience. Jefferson-Wooden has the momentum and 2 world titles to her name. The Ultimate Championships in Budapest this September will be the next place all 3 are likely to meet again. Nobody is running 21.3x yet, but for a record that has felt untouchable for most of its existence, the distance between impossible and imaginable has rarely looked this small. Thank you for watching. See you at the line in Budapest.